Good morning, afternoon, or evening. How y'all doing today? Welcome back to Mr. Moore's intensive math class. Today we will be wrapping up the decimals units, and we're going to be wrapping up by talking about dividing decimal numbers and by powers of 10. Dividing decimals is very easy, guys. Dividing decimal numbers is the same as dividing whole numbers, okay, except that the divisor must be converted into a whole number if it is in the form of a decimal. And we're going to talk about the procedure for that in a few seconds. So it must be converted into a whole number. So if you have a decimal number on the outside, because if you see down here, you have the positions of the divisor, the dividend, and the quotient. If the divisor, okay, which is the denominator if it's in fraction form, is in a decimal form, you must convert it to a whole number. Also, if the dividend is a decimal number and the divisor is a whole number, divide as normal. This time we're going to put this in blue, except remember to move up your decimal first to mark its place in the quotient. The dividend is inside, or in fraction form, it is the numerator. And the quotient is up here, and that's the answer. So in case you forget or you don't understand what this means, let's say I have 10 over 2. The 2 is the denominator. That's my divisor. It goes on the outside. The 10 is my dividend. It's the numerator, so it goes on the inside. And it doesn't matter who's larger or smaller. I know that a lot of times in elementary and middle school they say, oh, the large number goes on the inside first always. That is false. If I give you 2 divided by 10, the denominator is the 10. That's the divisor. That goes on the outside. The 2 is the numerator. That's the dividend. It goes on the inside. So please remember this. It does not matter who is larger or smaller. The denominator is the divisor. That goes outside, always. The numerator is the dividend. That goes inside, always, no matter what, my brothers. So, let's talk about some procedures here. If the divisor, okay, which remember, the divisor's the one on the outside here, guys. That's the denominator. If the divisor, which above is in red, is a decimal, it must be converted into a whole number. Simply move the decimal as many places to the right as needed. However, whatever is done to the divisor, which is the outside number, must be done to the dividend, which is the inside number. This is where a lot of my students get messed up or confused or get the answers wrong. Whatever you do to the outside number must be done to the inside number. Let's learn by example. Number 1, you see here, my friends, I've got 0.35 on the outside. That is my divisor. That's a decimal number. I have to, I must convert it to a whole number. So I'm going to take this decimal here and I'm going to go 1, 2 to the right. Okay? Making it now 35. But whatever I do to the divisor, to the outside, I must do to the inside. Where is the decimal of the dividend of this 70,070? Yes, sir. Go ahead. Where's the decimal, my man? At the end. Very good, over here. So I have to move the decimal 1, 2 to the right. You feel me? And then bring up the decimal and fill in the zeros. So my new dividend would be 7,007,000, which is 7,007,000. Always, since you know that the decimal's at the end now, bring it up so that you remember its place and you don't get confused. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Okay, now let's divide. How many times does 35 go into 70? So remember your placement. The 2 goes over the 0 because 35 goes into 70 two times. It doesn't go over the second 0. It doesn't go over the 7. It doesn't go in the middle between 7 and 0. It goes over the 0 because 2 times 35 is 70. Subtract the product. That's 0. Bring down to 0. How many times does 35 go into 0? 0 times. So that's 0. Bring down to 7. How many times does 35 go into 7? 0. So put another 0. Now bring down your next 0. How many times does 35 go into 0? No. 35 goes into 70, not 0 times, guys. 2 times. Very good. So that's 70. And then that's 0. Bring down your other 0. How many times does 35 go into 0? 0 times, which is 0. And last 0 you bring down. How many times does 35 go into 0? 0 times. So my answer here is 200,200. Does that make sense, my brothers? Are you sure? Do you promise me? All right. Let's look at number 2. I put it in a fraction form, 3/8. What number goes on the outside, my brothers? No. Okay. Whoever said 3, wrong. We just talked about this. My brothers, it does not go by who's larger or smaller. The denominator always goes on the outside. The denominator always goes on the outside. That's why I gave you this problem. I'm sorry to say it, but whoever told you that in elementary or middle school is wrong. The large number does not always go outside. That is wrong. It depends. It's the denominator. And in this case, the denominator is the 8. So this goes into 3.0. Bring up your decimal so you remember its placement. How many times does 8 go into 3? 0 times. 0 times 8 is 0. So you have 3. Bring down to 0. How many times does 8 go into 30? 3 times, which is 24. Very good, my brothers. That's 6. Bring down to 0. How many times does 8 go into 60? 7 times. Very good. That's 56. Excellent. That's a 4. Bring down a 0. How many times does 8 go into 40? 5 times. And bada bing, bada boom. You're done, my brothers. 3/8 equals 0.375. Does that make sense, boys? Any questions on that? Okay, awesomeness. Next, I'm going to erase this work here so it doesn't get in our way. Okay. Actually, I'm going to bring this up a little bit so we could have plenty of room. Okay, my friends. What do you notice here? What do we have to do first here? Yes, sir. Okay, the denominator, the divisor and the dividend have decimals. Okay, so what do I got to do? Move which one? You got to move which one, though, brother? The divisor. Let's start talking math, guys. The divisor, you have to move the decimal 1 to the right. So what does that mean you have to do to the dividend? You got to move it 1 to the right. So bring that decimal up, and you know it's right there. Does that make sense, boys? Are you sure, guys? Okay, so how many times does 2 go into 14? 7 times. Absolutely. So you subtract the product. Great job. Bring down the 6. How many times does 2 go into 6? 3. So you have the 3 here. And that's it. So that answer equals 7.3. Please notice that if your decimal placement is wrong, the whole entire question is wrong. Okay? I'm not trying to be mean. This is just the way math goes. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Okay. Number 4. What's going on here? What do we have to do first? Yes, sir. Okay, I know you have to move the decimal. Which decimal? That's the divisor's decimal. The divisor. Good man. Good man. So 1, 2 to the right. And then for the dividend, you got to move it 1, 2 to the right. And you bring it up. Awesome job, brother. Awesome job. 5 goes into 0, 0 times. So that's a 0 there. Bring down the 1. How many times does 5 go into 1? How many times does 5 go into 1? 0. So that's 0. Very good. 1. Bring down the 5. How many times does 5 go into 15? 3 times. So my answer is 0.03. Again, decimal placement is essential here. If you don't have your decimal placement, my brothers, you're often going to get it wrong. So please, if you have any questions on decimal placements, let me know, please, and thank you. Okay, next. First off, let's make this set up correctly. Which number goes on the outside? The 0.04, which is called the divisor. Good, divisor. So the 0.04 on the outside. And the 12.8 is the dividend, which is on the inside. Okay? Now, what decimal do I have to move first here, guys? The divisor is very good, so I'm going to go 1, 2 to the right. So what do I have to do to the dividend? Move it 1, 2 to the right. Bring it up so you don't forget. And fill that gap with a 0. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Yes. Okay. 4 goes into 12. How many times? 3. So I got minus 12. 0. Bring down the 8. 4 goes into 8. 2 times. So 2 times 4 is 8. That's a 0. Bring down the 0. 4 goes into 0. 0 times. So bada bing, bada boom. My answer is 320. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, do we have to do anything for this one here? Do we have to move a decimal or anything? No. But there is a decimal in the dividend, right? So what I would do, just to make sure that I have my decimal placement, I move that bad boy up immediately. Show yourself that you have moved the decimal. You know where it is now. Now it's going to be easy. 12 goes into 84 7 times. That goes over the 4, not the 8, and not between the 8 and 4, but over the 4. So that's 84. 0. Bring down the 7. How many times does 12 go into 7? No, 12 does not go into 7 6 times. It goes in 0 times. Please be careful, guys. The questions I'm asking are the questions you should be asking always. 12 goes into 72 how many times? 6. That's 72. 0 is my remainder. So I have 7.06. Good job. Good job. Does that make sense, gentlemen? You promise? Okay, I'm going to continue then. Now, the powers of 10. We've already talked about this, but I want to remind you again. I want to make sure you understand what this means. The powers of 10 are found by raising 10 to a whole number exponent. The answer will equal a 1 with the same number of zeros as there are exponents. Okay? So I'm going to give you the first powers of 10, the first 6. 10 to the 0 power would equal 10, because there's 1 0, guys. 10 to the second power would equal 100, because you have a 1 and 2 zeros, two exponents, so 2 zeros. 10 to the third power would equal 1,000, a 1 with 3 zeros behind it. 10 to the fourth power would be a 1 with 4 zeros behind it. So that's 10,000. 10 to the fifth would be a 1 with 5 zeros behind it, which is 100,000. 10 to the sixth power would be a 1 with 6 zeros behind it, which would be 1 million. So whenever you have a 10 raised to any whole number power, you write down the 1, and then you put as many zeros as there are exponents. Now that we understand powers of 10, it's easy to divide by powers of 10. Let's first remember that when you multiply by powers of 10, you move the decimal to the right as many places as there are zeros. But today we're doing division. Bless you. So in order to divide by powers of 10, guys, it's the opposite of multiplication. Simply move the original number's decimal to the left for as many places as there are zeros behind the 1. So don't do out all of this work. Make your life easy. You have 1,235 divided by 100. So you have here 1,235. How many zeros are there? Where's the decimal of 1,235? At the end. But I have 2 zeros. So I'm going to move this decimal how many places to the left? So I go 1 to the left, which equals 12.35. Very good. Or 12 and 35 hundredths. Excellent. Here, okay, I have this number here, 5,263 and 45 hundredths divided by 1,000. How many zeros are there? So how many places am I going to move it to the left? 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 to the left, which equals 5 and 26,345. What is that? 100 thousands? Tens, hundreds, thousands? Yeah. 5 and 26,345 hundred thousands. If you want to divide it out the long way, that's fine, but I do not suggest that. You will not have time on your quiz for that. You will run out of time on your test with that also. Use the powerful shortcut, please, and thank you. Next, I have an 18 here, so I'm going to write the 18. Where's the decimal of this 18, gentlemen? Right here at the end of the number. Very good. How many zeros do I have here being divided, gentlemen? 4. So how many places am I going to move the decimal to the left? 4. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4. I put an arrow here to know I went to the left. I place my decimal very clearly, and I put zeros in here. Then I clean it up, and this is going to be 18 ten thousandths, 0.0018. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Okay. Number 4. I'm dividing by 100,000. How many places to the left am I going to move my decimal inside of the dividend? 5 to the left. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I put an arrow there so I know clearly where it is, and I clearly define my decimal, and I rewrite my answer. 4.3565832, which is 4 and, let's see, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, million, 10 millions. So 4 and 3,565,832 10 millions. Bada bing, bada boom. Does that make sense, gentlemen?
Yes.
You promise, gentlemen.
Yes.
Any questions, gentlemen? Okay. then if you would do me a favor, please, go ahead and scan this dividing decimal numbers practice with answers. Okay? Has answers on this one. Scan that. Work on it. And then you have your second worksheet, which is dividing by powers of 10 practice. And if you need the answers to that, it's right here below, dividing powers of 10 practice answers. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day and be good. Hope you learned a lot. Okay, so here's the original one. Have a good one, guys.